In time, the elephants tired, and their chargers grew feebler. They began to back away slowly, like ships going astern, and with nothing worse than trumpetings. Taking his chance, Alexander surrounded the lot of them, elephants, horsemen, and all, and then signalled his infantry to lock shields and move up in a solid mass. Most of the Indian cavalry was cut down in the ensuing action. The infantry too, hard pressed by the Macedonians, suffered terrible losses. The survivors, finding a gap in Alexander's ring of cavalry, all turned and fled. Craterus and the other officers who had been left on the bank of the river began to cross as soon as they saw Alexander's triumphant success, and their fresh troops, taking over the pursuit from Alexander's weary men, inflicted upon the vanquished Indians further losses no less severe. Nearly 20,000 of the Indian infantry were killed in this battle, and about 3,000 of their cavalry. All of their war chariots were destroyed. Among the dead were 2 sons of Porus, Spitaces, the local Indian governor, all the officers in command of the elephants and chariots, and all of the cavalry officers and other commanders of high rank. The surviving elephants were captured. Out of Alexander's, and throughout the action, Porus had proved himself a man indeed, not only as a commander, but as a soldier of the truest courage. When he saw his cavalry cut to pieces, most of his infantry dead, and his elephants killed or roaming riderless and bewildered about the field, his behaviour was very different from that of the Persian king Darius. Unlike Darius, he did not lead the scramble to save his own skin, but so long as a single unit of his men held together, fought bravely on. It was only when he himself was wounded that he turned the elephant on which he rode and began to withdraw. The wound was in his right shoulder, the only unprotected part of his body. No missile, as he moved here and there in the thick of the fighting, could touch him anywhere else because of the corselet he wore. A corselet exceedingly tough and close-fitting, as all who subsequently saw him observe. Alexander, anxious to save the life of this great and gallant soldier, sent Tyxiles, the Indian, to him. Tyxiles rode up as near as he dared, and requested him to stop his elephant and hear what message Alexander sent him, as escape was no longer possible. But Tyxiles was an old enemy of the Indian king, and Porus turned his elephant and drove at him to kill him with his lance, and he might indeed have killed him if he had not spurred his horse out of the way in the nick of time. Alexander, however, far from resenting the treatment of his messenger, sent a number of others, the last of whom was an Indian named Meros, a man who had been told that he had long been Porus's friend. Porus listened to Meroes, stopped his elephant, and dismounted. He was much distressed by the thirst, so when he had revived himself by drinking, he told Meroes to conduct him with all speed to Alexander. Alexander, informed of his approach, rode out to meet him, accompanied by a small party of his companions. When they met, he reined in his horse and looked at his adversary with admiration. He was a magnificent figure of a man, over 7 feet high, and of a great personal beauty. His bearing had lost none of its pride. His air was of one brave man meeting another, of a king in the presence of a king, with whom he had fought honourably for his kingdom. Alexander was the first to speak. "What," he said, "do you wish that I should do with you?" "Treat me as a king ought," Porus is said to have replied. "For my part," said Alexander, pleased by his answer, "your request shall be granted. But is there not something you would wish for yourself? Ask it." "Everything," said Porus, "is contained in this one request." The dignity of these words gave Alexander even more pleasure, and he restored to Porus his own sovereignty over his subjects, adding to his realm other territory of even greater extent.